Paso. Welcome to Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera,
where our mission is to share the fun of asking the big questions with you.
My name is Dr. Kim Diaz, and I teach philosophy here at El Paso Community College.
And my name is Jules Simon, and I teach philosophy at the University of Texas, El Paso.
Today we feel very grateful to be here interviewing none other than Dr. Víctor Manuel Hernández Márquez, with whom we've had the honor of working for the last 10 years. How did you first meet?
Oh, I met Victor actually through another colleague of ours, a former student of mine named Shane Epting, and through an organization that we were forming called Philosophy of the City. And Victor was instrumental in helping get that organization off the ground and setting up and organizing venues in Mexico, specifically in Mexico City, in Ciudad de
Mexico?
Ciudad de Mexico, sí. So I've known Victor several years now, 10 years, and have worked with him on a couple of different occasions.
And then Victor and I met in Chiapas, en un congreso de filosofía también allá, en San Cristóbal.
San Cristóbal.
Y
sí.
también Jules vino. Dio
Sí.
su papel, dio su presentación en español.
Mi presentación fue en español, and in the question and answer period, I was struggling with the español. And I remember Victor standing up and saying, "Jules, we all understand English here. Go ahead and talk in English and I'll translate." That was very kind of you, Victor.
So I would like to formally introduce Dr. Víctor Hernández. Él ha ejercido como profesor en la Universidad Autónoma de Chapingo, donde además se ha desempeñado como director general de difusión cultural y servicio. Él ejerce como profesor investigador en la Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez, donde fue coordinador del programa de doctorado en ciencias sociales. El profesor Hernández Márquez es miembro del Sistema Nacional de Investigaciones Nivel 1 de la Universidad Autónoma de Ciudad Juárez y centra sus estudios en el proyecto sobre humanidades y ciencias de la conducta. Entre sus publicaciones podemos mencionar Lógica, Lenguaje y Realidad, Examen crítico del programa absolutista del 2001, La multiplicidad de Rousseau en coautoría con Roberto Sánchez Benítez del 2016 y Pierre Duhem entre física y metafísica en coautoría con Joao FN Cortese, Roberto Estrada Olguín, Fábio Rodrigo Leite, Roberto Sánchez Benítez y Ambrosio Velázquez Gómez del 2016. Además, diversos artículos en revistas especializadas. Pues sí, bienvenido, Víctor. Bienvenido a Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera.
So we begin. Victor, in your opinion and experience, what is La Frontera? You know, in su opinión y experiencia. ¿Qué es La Frontera? What is La Frontera?
Thank you for invitarme to be here with you and your program. And my answer is runs as follows. The border is about all the mark of a limit, a territorial, political, social, cultural, linguistic limit. But it can also be a mental limit, a conceptual limit. In itself, the border is neither good or bad. It all depends on whether or not the limits, its marks, can be crossed, whether or not we are allowed to do so, whether or not we are forced to transgress, to be completely indifferent or be completely indifferent towards one side or towards the other. For the rest, there is no fixed, immutable borders. Not even those that are considered natural. That is, when geography imposes a division between two zones. Human borders, even more changeable and flexible, even though we have the impression that they have always been there, or that they will be continuing be there in the future. In this sense, we can say, following Heraclitus, no one crossed the same border twice. It might be sounds exaggerated, but only because our idea of persistence or permanence is huge and exists us. In some way, the borders are different as much as the features of one side of the other are different. In our times, the economic difference is the difference. It is the nature in which all the other variables are measured. In fact, the main source of border construction is wealth, not only between nations, but also between citizens of the same country. They are the ones who build the highest walls, who create exclusive areas, too large for them to actually occupy at will. From my point of view, it's a great irony that the workers, illegal or when access has been denied in principle, are those who cohabit these places. And they are the ones who enjoy the landscape in their own way. To be more precise, it's not well in self that create boundaries between human beings, but economic inequality, social injustice, ill-gotten wealth, political corruption, and tax evasion. Unfortunately, several of these things are present on the border that we share between El Paso and Ciudad Juárez, and largely determine the way people's lives on one side or the other, even if one doesn't even approach the border street. On the other hand, all this not inhibit the deep interaction between both cities. Not even the COVID-19 virus has reduced the vehicular flow on the line, or the arrival of immigrants from remote places. Only commerce in El Paso, which depend largely of Chihuahua's citizen consumption, has been severely affected. Although we hope it's only temporary. In my opinion, greater understanding and political cooperation between two countries may, in the future, lessen the tension that exists on our border, which is to be the case in the mood between both current administrations.
So yeah. I'm very happy that you're here, Victor, because we have somebody who's fluent in Spanish, somebody who's fluent in English, and somebody who's fluent in Spanglish. And so this typifies, right? Esto es típico de aquí de la frontera.
Yeah.
Y
Mix.
sí, y como mencionaste en tu respuesta, cómo son los límites, ¿no? Son muchos límites, pero incluso también del lenguaje. Pero cómo los cruzamos, ¿no? Eso es si podemos cruzarlos o no, y también mentales, ¿no? Entonces, tú te esfuerzas lo más que puedes con el inglés, Jules lo más que puede con su español, y ciertas personas hablamos pocho, pero entre todos nos comunicamos y encontramos la manera de que esos caminos, ¿no? Esas conexiones sigan, que sean conexiones en lugar de límites, ¿no? Yo quiero hacerte la segunda pregunta. ¿En qué o cómo se diferencia metafísicamente trabajar en filosofía o enseñar la filosofía desde la frontera en comparación con el interior del país? ¿Cómo es diferente enseñar filosofía aquí en la frontera?
O en Ciudad de México.
Sí, o en Ciudad de México, ¿no? Porque es otra realidad.
Yeah.
En tu experiencia, ¿cómo lo es?
Voy a tratar de darles en inglés y luego hablar en español. When I came to this frontier 13 years ago, there was a master's degree in philosophy. It was the only academic program at the university and was largely an inheritance of an Italian professor, Federico Ferrogai, who enjoyed indisputable prestige in the community. But when he passed away, the master program could not survive for long. But when I was invited to be part of the university teaching staff, it was not to teach philosophy, but to consolidate the doctoral program in social sciences that has really been created and sought to enter the quality postgraduate standard implemented by the Federal Agency for Science and Technology, CONACYT. Consequently, my arrival at the university did not go to the Department of Humanities, but to the Department of Social Sciences. And I still maintain the same status within the organization of the institute in which both departments belongs. However, and to my surprise, in all programs, undergraduate and graduate, there are a lot of philosophy courses, such as epistemology of social sciences, philosophy of education, philosophy of law, logic, hermeneutics, for sociologists, of course, and etc. And from time to time, I have been busy teaching some of those courses. Only very recently, we have been able to open a doctoral program in philosophy, in which only this semester I taught a full course. And this is my answer to your question. So, en Spanish, lo diré de manera resumida. En realidad yo no llegué aquí a la frontera para enseñar filosofía, sino que fui invitado para contribuir a fortalecer un programa de doctorado en ciencias sociales y cuando llegué había un programa de maestría en filosofía que se debía básicamente al empeño de un filósofo italiano, Federico Ferrogai, que que gozaba de un prestigio considerable en la comunidad en general, no solamente académica de la universidad. Pero cuando él falleció, pues el programa no lo pudo sobrevivir y desapareció. Yo tuve oportunidad de dar algunos cursos en esa maestría, pero fue una experiencia un tanto agridulce, pues. Entonces, propiamente la filosofía no estaba en la universidad de manera consolidada, aunque había muchas materias, hay muchas materias dentro de los distintos programas en el Instituto de Ciencias Sociales y Administración. Así que, digamos, materia de trabajo no ha faltado en ese sentido, ¿no? Esa sería mi respuesta a tu pregunta.
I just want to ask a follow-up question. So es muy interesante, Víctor, that you began a doctorate program in Filosofía at UACJ. So how successful has that been? And are you attracting students to come be part of the doctoral program? And how many? Are they coming to study in the master's program or?
¿Cómo les va?
Bueno, cuando yo llegué aquí, más o menos por la misma época, llegaron otros dos colegas de universidades del centro del país. Uno de la UNAM, que tampoco llegó a Humanidades, sino que llegó al Departamento de Administración. Y otro colega que venía de la Universidad Nicolaita de Michoacán y llegó a Humanidades, al Departamento de Literatura. Y ellos tienen una formación en filosofía, en el doctorado, también en la UNAM. Y pues muy pronto empezamos a comunicarnos y a empezar a trabajar de manera conjunta, organizar conferencias, presentaciones de libros y cosas por el estilo. Más adelante voy a platicar un poco cómo es que armamos el programa de doctorado en filosofía, pero lo que podría decir es que la idea con este programa es aprovechar las inquietudes filosóficas que existen dentro de las profesiones que se enseñan en la universidad, ya sea en Derecho, ya sea en Psicología, en Sociología, en la licenciatura en Educación. Y por lo tanto pensamos en la filosofía no como un programa para investigación en el sentido tradicional en la cual se entiende un programa de filosofía, ¿no? Sino más bien una especie de programa que pueda contribuir a la consolidación de el ejercicio profesional de quienes optaron por una de estas otras carreras, ¿no? Esa es la idea. Lo cual, pues es un gran reto, pues. Pero somos alrededor en la planta docente del doctorado, somos alrededor de 10 gentes, 10 profesores, y la mitad de ellos en realidad es la que tiene la formación fuerte en filosofía. Solo la mitad. Pero la otra mitad, pues, sirve como de soporte, ¿no? Porque tenemos un profesor en las lenguas muertas, en latín y griego, ¿no? Es un filólogo, y tenemos otros colegas que son fuertes por ejemplo, en hermenéutica jurídica, en filosofía del derecho, son abogados, pero con una formación fuerte en filosofía.
Did I understand you correctly, Víctor, that there are other professors teaching in the program from different disciplines, and that's how it makes up the degree? Is that how it works?
Sí.
So,
Yeah.
Así
so the
es.
faculty is made up of different professors from different areas.
Yeah. The whole of our staff.
Yeah, from different staff. So estudiantes también.
Yeah.
So
We got,
it's not traditional like
Yeah.
core philosophy, but it's much more interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
Mucho más.
There's no straight trajectories in philosophy,
I see.
but students from background in educational studies or literature or history.
Yeah.
And we try to give them solid main currents in philosophy and to profit his intellectual philosophical questions.
I want to preguntar, would you say that for the doctoral program in Filosofía, the Doctorate in Filosofía, are you the main organizer or is there someone else?
No, right now I only member staff.
You're just a member?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, I only give one course in philosophical research.
In philosophical research, okay.
Yeah.
De cierta manera ya respondiste a la siguiente pregunta que yo te quería hacer es epistémicamente, ¿cómo es trabajar en la filosofía diferente, ¿no? en el interior del país y aquí en la frontera? Entonces, si lo puedes, o sea, se trabaja diferente, ¿no? Allá me imagino es más consolidado, más especializado, y me da la impresión de acá en Juárez es más pluralístico, ¿no? Se me hace que es basado a la necesidad, ¿no? A la necesidad de lo que, de la experiencia aquí en Ciudad Juárez, que es diferente a la de la Ciudad de México. Pero entonces las preguntas que se hacen, más que cómo se está haciendo, lo veo es como que el programa nació basado a las necesidades que existen aquí de los estudiantes, ¿no? Y me pregunto si las preguntas que ellos hacen, las investigaciones que se hacen aquí en la frontera, si son epistémicamente diferentes a las que se hacen en el interior del país.
Can I ask the question a little differently? You're
Sí.
asking what's the epistemic difference or something between one or the other?
Mm-hmm.
So, Victor, you teach one course, una cursa, in philosophical research. So, when you teach philosophical research here, aquí in Ciudad Juárez, how do you think that's different, teaching philosophical research aquí, as opposed to, say, Guanajuato or UNAM or someplace in central Mexico? Do you teach philosophical research differently? And this can capture the epistemic and logic a little bit.
Sí.
So you teach philosophical research.
Pero
So
es
what's the
mismo.
nature of the research that you're teaching? How are you teaching them philosophy of language? Are you teaching them traditional philosophical metaphysics, ethics? I know your question you asked us, how would we rate subdisciplines, right? So when you do philosophical research, teaching on the border, on La Frontera, what is it you're teaching? How do you teach them to research in philosophy aquí, in Juárez?
Yeah. Well, there's two lines of the research that I followed. One of them is the same here and there. It's about how to build a strong line of research. You know, how to use a book, how to searching in the base of data, how to ask questions about any subject, philosophical subject, and this is the same. But in the other line, I try to avoid the main errors or mistakes that a naive student do when introduce himself in the study of philosophy. Yeah? You know, as questions that really not philosophical, or to give a lot of credit to the printing form of knowledge that we found in books, and to think critically. This is my basic tenets when I teach philosophical research. It's hard to teach something how to think.
See,
you know, nobody can introduce in the mind of a student to shift his way of thinking.
That's interesting, because teaching critical thinking is one of the most important things we do in philosophy, right? Teaching each other how to question, how to argue, how to raise a challenge, how to look at a different perspective. ¿Sí? Una otra perspectiva. Pero I think our theme for our interview with you today is La Frontera, right?
Yeah.
And I think being on La Frontera, being on this border, raises critical questions for our students that are philosophical. You know, the border itself raises a challenge to being here, to just being here, right? To be on the border, to be in La Frontera, to be politically, socially, culturally, as you said in the beginning, yeah? That existential experience raises questions. And I think it's really important for philosophers like you and like us to be able to help our students see those questions, see what being on the frontera does. You know, it brings languages together, it brings people together, you know, in sometimes good ways and sometimes not so good ways, right? So, and, you know, we try to do that from this side, and it sounds like you're doing something like that from the Juárez side as well. And successfully. When you invited me to give a talk at UACJ on violence, on narco-violence, what can philosophy say to the narco-violence here on the border, right? How do philosophers respond to that? That was a wonderful conference. And those are the kinds of things I think that, you know, should be happening often in philosophy, on both sides, like you're doing, like we don't do enough here.
Tratamos, ¿no?
Yeah.
Sí,
Let me make some comments about your answer.
Yeah.
I try to do the same, not only with my students in philosophy, but with my students in social sciences, and try to engage in an intellectual manner with the problems in the border. Both sides, not only Mexican sides, because sometimes, in my view, this side tried to view about only in some perspectives that very fragmentary of the problems. And naive too, because we live in this borderland with many problems that not have the origin here, but global problems with concrete situation in the border and political borders. For example, violence by narco culture or illegal trade. This is not only a problem from the border zones, but sometimes we think about only what happened when we cross the border.
Yeah.
In these issues, but many people. This is a city, a manufacturing city, Maquila city, a very productive city, but with a low quality of citizenship and very poor facilities.
See.
Something that is something paradoxical with a city with a very strong industry and trade. Why? Why? This is only because we are in the border? I think not. And we need to not only ask to the working people or to refugees or to immigrants, but have a global opinion about what happened in general in the world and labor main currents today.
That's a really good comment, Víctor, because now there's this phenomenon going on about supply chains and a lack of goods globally because there's no because of the lack of the pandemic and the lack of workers and the lack of truckers and the lack of boats and things like that. So the situation on the border here is dynamic, and globally it's being affected globally, and that's going to change as well. And I think that, you know, as philosophers, we can help our students see what those changes are and why those changes are happening. And, you know, work to make the changes that do happen in such a way that the workers experience better working conditions. Like you said, there's not good quality of life in Juárez. Even though it's a heavy industrial city, the quality of life is not very good, and there's questions about safety and things like that. And I think given the importance of these economic issues and the relationship of Juárez to El Paso, I think it's incumbent on people like us, philosophers, social scientists, you know, to look out for the workers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of who are our students.
I feel like the owl of Minerva because my questions are coming after the actual conversation. Entonces las preguntas que les quiero preguntar son también, o sea, éticamente y sociopolíticamente, que es precisamente de lo que están hablando, ¿no?
Yeah.
Las preguntas the issues, the ethical issues, the social political issues,
Sí.
cómo son diferentes acá en la frontera que en el interior del país, ¿no? Entonces ya están hablando precisamente de eso, ¿no? De sociopolíticamente, ¿no? Cómo los trabajadores, su estándar de vida no es lo que debería de ser, la economía, la ética de la ironía que mencionaste, Víctor, de que somos precisamente los mexicanos, mexicoamericanos, ¿no? Que los que trabajamos en estas instituciones que dividen a la gente mexicana, ¿no? La ironía.
No, quisiera regresar un poco también sobre el estatus de la filosofía en el norte, y no solamente el norte, sino en cualquier región fuera del centro del país. México es un país con una política muy centralista. Las principales instituciones federales están en el centro, sean culturales, sean de la industria. Por ejemplo, tenemos una Cineteca Nacional, pero que está en el centro. O sea, es nacional solamente muy tardíamente. Tenemos, por ejemplo, universidades nacionales que están en el centro otra vez, con algunas pocas extensiones en algunas ciudades y por lo tanto son nacionales nominalmente. Por lo tanto, en el caso de la filosofía, el núcleo duro de la filosofía profesional, consolidada institucionalmente, está en el centro. Y en las demás regiones, más hacia el norte de la frontera, que tienden también por su actividad comercial ser más utilitaristas, más pragmáticas en su concepción general, lo que lo podemos llamar también su representación social o su imaginario social. Entonces, la filosofía tiene un estatus muy precario de reconocimiento y de prestigio intelectual. Es algo que hay que hacer. Es, digamos, nuestra tarea en la frontera consiste en dotar a la filosofía de un prestigio que actualmente no tiene. Y por ahí va la respuesta a lo que ustedes han planteado. Y tengo la impresión de que la cosa no es muy diferente en El Paso, ¿no? Dado que El Paso también es una ciudad comercial, vive mucho de la interacción entre las dos ciudades y no solamente las dos ciudades, sino las dos regiones vistas en general. Y creo que la imagen que tiene el ciudadano común de ambos lados con respecto a la filosofía, pues no es ni siquiera, no puedo decir que siquiera sea buena o mala, sino que ni siquiera existe, ¿no? I say that the big problem with philosophy at the border is a lack of status or prestige between the citizens, because at the border, the main currents of thought, imaginary, social imaginary, is pragmatic, utilitaristic, and not precisely with deep thoughts about philosophical questions.
Oh, yeah.
So, and philosophy lacks of strong process of institutionalization in the university system. In fact, we are doing that. But this is very recently.
¿Sabes? Sí hay una diferencia. There is a difference. Una diferencia es que yo noto en México, como dices, ¿no? Hay universidades nacionales, pero en los Estados Unidos no las hay. Es más estatal. Entonces, por ejemplo, Texas tiene the University of Texas System, Texas A&M y las estatales, ¿no? Entonces, pero así que haya una universidad nacional, no, son más estatales. Entonces están centralizadas, pero en el estado hay la the flagship institution, ¿no? Que es la, por ejemplo, en Austin, la de UT. Y luego ya hay en UT Dallas, San Antonio, Río Grande, El Paso. ¿Cuál es la otra? Está
UT Arlington.
Arlington, UT Galveston.
Sí.
Entonces, en diferentes ciudades por el mismo sistema, pero en el nivel estatal. Pero bueno, en ese sentido es la diferencia, pero sí estoy de acuerdo en el que no tiene el prestigio aquí que más al interior del estado. Y estéticamente, ¿cuál es la diferencia?
Well, it's mostly the same, you know. Las actividades culturales, cultural activities, son mucho menores en la frontera desde el punto de vista institucional, otra vez. Lo cual no quiere decir que no existan. De hecho, tanto del Paso como en Ciudad Juárez existen bastantes movimientos artísticos muy interesantes. Pero, y son contestatarios. Por ejemplo, de este lado de la frontera hay bastantes artistas que no son del todo reconocidos por las instituciones que tienen como principal propósito tratar los temas de la frontera, los temas de la violencia, ¿no? Por ejemplo, en el teatro tenemos una versión muy interesante, una adaptación de Antígona, ¿sí? Que obviamente se presta para las circunstancias trágicas que se viven en esta frontera, ¿no? O sea, porque desafortunadamente los desaparecidos, las desaparecidas de este lado de la frontera son incontables, ¿no? Y a veces las autoridades pretenden minimizar porque esto es una mala imagen de la ciudad, ¿no? Entonces tampoco no suelen apoyar ese tipo de manifestaciones artísticas porque tienden a perpetuar esa imagen de la ciudad que desde el punto de vista empresarial, político, no quieren que se promueva, pues. Pero no es una cuestión de promoción o de difusión, simplemente es lo que es. It is what it is. ¿Ah? Entonces, ese es uno de los rasgos que encontramos aquí. Eso estoy mencionando el teatro, pero lo mismo ocurre en las artes plásticas, donde los grafiteros populares, los que hacen serigrafía, grabado, pues el tema es la migración, un tema muy recurrente es la migración. Y la migración, pues es un fenómeno que en los últimos años se convierte en el tema principal en la frontera, ¿no? Y como decimos, un poco en broma, un poco en en serio, los juarenses trabajan en El Paso, y los ilegales o los migrantes trabajan en Juárez. You know? Jules.
Yeah.
We say here, more or less as a joke, more or less seriously, that the cities, the men and women in Juárez work in El Paso, and immigrants work in Juárez.
Ah.
You know? This is a kind of joke, but with a little bit of truth, you know?
So you teach philosophical research, and your orientation is to the social sciences. But would you say here on La Frontera, is there a different demand? Is there a different need for focusing on different areas of philosophy? Like political philosophy or aesthetics or ethics? Is being on La Frontera, do students or faculty see that that there's a different kind of teaching that they should teach because it's La Frontera? Like, for instance, I'm teaching 20th century philosophy right now, right? Mm-hmm. And I chose 3 philosophers: Heidegger, Simone de Beauvoir, y Octavio Paz. And I chose that because of, well, my background, phenomenology and existentialism, but also because of men and women relationships and how different they are here on the border. And I think Beauvoir does a good job of raising that as an issue. So in my class this week, students talked about machismo because we studied feminism, right? And so a lot of the students are saying, yeah, this is what goes on at home. These are my parents. You know, this is how it happens culturally in Mexican culture. And then, of course, Octavio Paz, you know, and what is the question of Mexicanidad, right? So from the Juárez side, do you find that there's courses that you teach or areas that you focus on in teaching philosophy that are called for just because you're on the border?
My opinion is that as far as I know, it's not very different. Students a strong commitment with frontier issues, border issues. Only when we confront with them, try to reformulate his views. For example, I'm not teaching Mexican philosophy or Filosofía de la Liberación, or my background is in analytical philosophy or philosophy of logic and philosophers as Wittgenstein, Bertrand Russell. But when I came to the university, I start already move to the philosophy of social sciences. So I try to engage in the problems at the border directly related with social sciences, mainly anthropologists, cultural anthropologists or sociologists. But there is a kind of empiricism, positivist view how to do in that social sciences. Very, in my view, very wrong tendencies. Only question about methodologies. About if you do questionnaires, build statistics, or if you are a qualitative anthropologist or sociologist, you need to make interviews, and that's all, and not deep philosophical view,
reflection,
that, questioning, or put aside from the center the question of methodology, and try to involve in the theoretical point of view, and the relevance of the theoretical point of view. That is my main purpose with my students. And I try to do the same with my students in philosophy. But I got one student, and she's a person from Chihuahua, from a well-known family, and she searched an scientist and political thinker from the post-revolutionary era. Very little known in the center, but he made some interesting contributions that lost because La UNAM, for example, in fact, consolidate philosophical study only at the mid of the past century, And this guy, his principal activities as a philosopher is in the few decades before. So she is trying to search and introduce his main tenets in. He was a philosopher of physics, He's the first persons to introduce philosophical questions about quantum mechanics in Mexico. This is very weird. I think she's okay. She's tried to search, and because he's a relative of her, this is me, the only person that I give my advice as a director of her research. But my relationship with the other students in the philosophical program is very newly. Yeah, as I said before, I start to give a full course only this term, not before. So I know something about the projects of the other students, but Luis Diaz, who work in the tradition of philosophy of liberation, and my other colleagues, as Roberto Estrada, that he works in Heidegger philosophy, and and Roberto Sánchez that works with Octavio Paz thoughts, and I think in full we give very interesting possibilities to our students, no? to give a not traditional view about philosophy.
Prima. Yeah.
In my own research, I'm interested in what I call the reorganization of knowledge that starts in the 19th century in Europe, and that all the genealogy from that reorganization of knowledge and the tree of knowledge that create the humanities departments all around the Western world. No? And this is the reason why I am interested too in the way that philosophy enter in sociological institutional process of consolidations. Here, and not only in Juárez, but in all the Mexican and Latin American countries, because one of the main questions in the philosophy in Latin America is about the identity of the reflection of the philosophers in America Latina. No? There is something about, or something that we can say that is properly Latin American philosophy or Mexican philosophy. Mm-hmm. This is a kind of question when a region, a zone became political independent country. You know, who we are, you know, philosophical. What is our cultural heritage? It's indigenous, primitive, or West. This is the questions that from the late of the 19th century, not only in Mexico, but in all the South America, put the dynamics of the thoughts in America Latina. And I'd be not full aware about the details of the main currents, but I know something about it. I'm trying to give the little I know about it to my students. Okay, we are very concerned about what is our identity from a philosophical point of view.
Victor, that's a wonderful response to go from what is being done especially different on the border to what you're doing that gives a perspective not only on the organization of knowledge, you know, from the 19th century out of, say, Europe, but also in terms of the identity of Latin Americans in South America and Mexico as well. So it's not just a border issue, you know, it's from the border giving a perspective on Mexico and the rest of Latin America. That's a wonderful way to end up our interview.
Muchas gracias, Víctor, por estar con nosotros hoy. Gracias.
No, muchas gracias a ustedes por la invitación. Me da mucho gusto de verlos, aunque sea por
Sí, aunque sea virtualmente. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Víctor.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening to Philosophic Dialogues from La Frontera. Please join us next time.